All right. Well, okay. So, bad news. We lost Dan's slides.
Oh no!
So if you see them running around the room, just stomp on them and give them back to us. No, Dan. While we're waiting for this to come up, though, so we don't have a lot of dead time. Is your first time in the Philippines?
Yes.
Yes.
First time in the Philippines.
Okay. Favorite experience so far? And it wasn't immigration at NAIA.
It's just been a bit of a rush, really. Fantastic place. First time, won't be the last. The event is great. Dev team have done a great job. It's clear that there's an upswell of innovation in the whole region, but it seems specifically here.
I'm getting that picture myself now. I wonder if if you have any idea, because you have been at this part of this ecosystem longer than I have. How many events do you think you've been to in the Magento in your time in the Magento world?
Oh, lots. I mean, 100.
I mean, we've seen each other on probably 4 or 5 continents at least.
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. So, I mean, I was first involved with Magento when it was that tiny company in Los Angeles, 5 guys in a room. And the interesting thing back then was their vision of the platform is what happened. That played out. They told me what they were going to do with Magento, and everything happened.
Okay. I have a great story about that, but we found your slides, so I'll let you get to it.
Yay! We got there. And ironically, one of the key messages here is speed. That wasn't very quick, so I apologize for that. So today, you've already heard something about what's going on with Magento. So what I aim to do for you here is to pull that together so that you understand how this works in practice and how, as we've got here, we can achieve speed, scale, and sustainability, and why that is of key importance for everybody and a new equation by which we all need to move forward with. So we are going to look at a case study, somebody actually using Magento and what their journey was and what their decision-making process was, because that's really important for everybody here, whether you're a merchant or an agency or a tech provider. Why do people choose Magento? Why not Shopify? Why not something else? And we'll also talk about what's coming as well. As Ben said, I've been around the platform since 2007. So it's not going to be too long when that's 20 years. Seems a long time. But first, let me just very briefly talk about, explain who I am. I'm Dan Garner. I'm the founder of a company called OnTap. We're part of a bigger ecosystem, which includes some other well-known brands within the Magento ecosystem. So we're part of BSS Commerce, based in Vietnam, but we've got other brands within the business, and we are well over 400 people now. And all of that started as a result of that initial conversation with those 5 guys in Los Angeles who were just about to launch something called Magento. It just proves that entire businesses and careers can be built on Magento and have been. So we work with, we're an agency predominantly, although we build lots of products. We work with lots of brands globally, and also in this region. We have a strong presence, and we will talk about one of those from the region today. And that's WineRack, a Singaporean retailer. We've been working with them for quite a number of years now. They were early advocates of Magento way back in Magento 1 days. And we've kind of helped them within our group along that journey. Because Magento as a platform is a great enabler, right, if it's implemented correctly. And that enablement really does enable brands of all sizes, all markets to do what they need to do. We've never had to say to a client either Magento can't do the thing that they want or that we can't get Magento to do that thing that they want to do. The flexibility is kind of baked in from the beginning. And so their key challenges were when they came to us, they were on a very outdated Magento 1 platform at that point. It had already gone past the end of life for Magento 1, so they had concerns about what the future held, which platform they should move to, should that be Magento 2, or should they go to Shopify, or one of the other platforms. And so that was a key challenge for them to make that decision. And they also found that when they were going into that decision-making process, they realized that the data within their business was very fragmented. And that caused some issues at the front end in terms of stock availability, order processing, and so on. It just wasn't a joined-up process. And they also had a very slow website at that time. So these were the key challenges they came to us with. So the solution we provided was that migration. Now, does anybody here remember Magento 1? Did you actually work with Magento 1? Yeah, there's a few. There's fewer and fewer these days, because when we talk about Magento, we just talk in terms of Magento 2 these days. But it was a challenge to migrate from Magento 1 to Magento 2, a big headache. The data side of it, quite straightforward. The functionality was like starting again. It was a difficult conversation with merchants who just saw it as a number change from 1 to 2. But of course, it wasn't. It was a big decision, and that caused lots of merchants to really think about, do I need Magento? Should I go to Shopify? Should I go somewhere else if I'm going to have to change everything to go to Magento 2? We managed to do that pretty seamlessly for them. They didn't have any downtime, really, apart from a few minutes. They achieved data consistency. The functionality was the same, if not better. So it's certainly feasible. And it doesn't matter that they came from Magento 1 to Magento 2. They could be coming from Shopify to Magento 2. It is possible to migrate into Magento from any other platform seamlessly, and that be better. And you've heard it already today, one of the things that we did, Hyvä. So Hyvä sets the new standard that everybody needs to adopt going forward. And now that it's the theme is fully open source, there's really no excuse, right? Luma, as we heard in the talk a little while ago, the Luma theme is there, but that's fairly outdated now. Hyvä is the way forward. So I invite everybody to go and talk to John on the Hyvä booth there if you haven't done already. And one of the key metrics that the client had for us was the site was slow. And the core web vitals were lacking. And what we found was when moving from Magento 1 to Magento 2, core web vitals were really not on people's radar, right? That really didn't happen. That happened later. Then it became an imperative to get good core web vitals. Now, if you're using Magento 2 with Luma, a Luma theme, then as soon as you start adding modules, those numbers drop quite significantly. And trying to get them up is a big challenge, big challenge. And that can take a long time and a lot of money working with an agency. What we found with Hyvä was that if you start with Hyvä, you start at 100. And when you do add modules to a Hyvä build, yeah, the numbers can come down, but not by much. So you've already got a fantastic baseline for performance. And trying to push those numbers up back to 100 is a lot easier with Hyvä compared to both Luma themes and also with platforms like Shopify. Shopify do push the fact that they've got a performant front end, but there are big challenges making that truly performant. So, as I mentioned, the client was questioning, should I move to Magento 2 from my Magento 1? And so there was key questions. Why Magento? Is it still relevant? Now, I've been around Magento since the beginning, and the fact I'm standing here today is the fact that it is still relevant. The flexibility that the platform gives merchants and agencies is unparalleled. Right? Regardless of what other platforms say, it's unparalleled. You can do anything with Magento. And things like the multi-store capability, other platforms haven't had that for years. Magento had that right from the beginning. That initial conversation in that small room in Los Angeles, when I met with Magento, one of their key things was, this is going to be multi-store, multi-currency from the bottom up. Other platforms have struggled to deliver that. Magento's had that from day one. And we all take that for granted, but other platforms really struggle to deliver what are now table stakes for most merchants, which are things like multi-store capability. And with WineRack expanding into other regions, then that flexibility, that baked-in functionality gives them that enablement to be able to do that without that costing a huge amount of money. And the range of functionality again, is massive. And the fact that there's lots of extensions and plugins and the fact you can extend it, that's all benefits for using Magento. And of course, replatforming is hard. Right? 2 or 3 years ago, there was a big rush from one platform to the next. Everybody seemed to be replatforming, which seemed to be great for agencies because we got lots of work. But the reality is that it's a project that you really don't want to do as a merchant. You know, it's like moving house. It's very stressful. You really don't want to do it unless you have to. And customers like WineRack, you know, they're sold a story by other SaaS platforms. SaaS meaning software as a service, like Shopify, BigCommerce, as being cheaper. That's not necessarily the case. When you start adding apps to Shopify, the costs do ramp up. And the cost of ownership often is more than Magento. And that maintenance of Magento has been something that other platforms have targeted, but it doesn't have to cost. And we'll talk about that a bit more in a moment. But then why Hoover? Our client was saying, well, what's this thing called Hoover? As John said earlier, how do I even pronounce that word, right? It doesn't matter how you pronounce it, as John said, as long as we're talking about it, because it is important. So customer experience was key, and Hoover delivers that through the front-end improvements that it enables developers to leverage. But also the developer experience is key as well. Anybody who used to develop with Magento 1 knows how straightforward it was to get things live. And when Magento 2 came along, it became more difficult. And that's because Magento 2 was a more mature platform. You had to do things a certain way. Hoover, on top of Magento, gives the same developer experience as we all used to enjoy with Magento 1. And great future potential. The Hoover CMS that's part of Hoover Commerce, we use that ourselves internally. Our customers love this. It makes the front end so much easier to build and maintain. It means you don't have to get your developers involved. If you haven't seen Hoover Commerce yet, you should go see that. And that reduces the overall total cost of ownership of Magento. And as we've heard today, the theme's now open source, so it doesn't cost any money to get on board. So this idea of speed, scale, sustainability, at ONTAP, we've always innovated. Part of the BSS group, we've always had a product focus as well. So 2 of the things that we've done that really do prove that the Magento ecosystem is something that enables everybody to grow, everybody to build, are 2 things that we've launched recently. One called Carbon and one called Evergreen. And we believe these are game changers for Magento merchants. So the first thing is Carbon. Now, this is a solution that's built on top of Magento and on top of Hyvä. And there are other so-called accelerators on the market, which say they do a similar thing in that they get you to market quickly. You can get to market pretty quickly anyway, but some merchants need that in days or weeks. Now, what we've done is taken that idea of a faster way to deliver Magento and really accelerated that because we've added 100 more features to Magento, both B2B and B2C out of the box. And we've done that because we're part of the BSS group, and in that group with BSS and Aitoc, our other extension module company, we have about 150 modules. So what we've done, we've bundled these together, we've pre-integrated them, and we've made sure they work. So when you install Carbon, it just all works. And so we've got B2B functionality that is better than Adobe Commerce's B2B functionality, but without that high cost. And as well as that well-rounded Magento experience, we're also adding to that point of sale, retail point of sale, and also soon OMS. So we can really take the merchant right from an in-shop experience all the way through to warehouse, with Magento sitting in the middle, with all this extra functionality, good to go. So that's the first thing. And we can really, we can deliver Carbon-based websites literally within days if we need to. It's very quick. And this is also available for other agencies to use as a way of enabling them to deliver their services to clients more easily, so you can focus less on the platform, less on the standard functionality, and then focus more on the customized bespoke functionality that that client actually needs that only you can deliver. Okay, so the next thing we call Evergreen. Now, one of the, if you like, the complaints about Magento is the fact that we always seem to be patching it. We always seem to be upgrading it, right? And that happens at the moment every quarter, right? So every 3 months. From January next year, that potentially shifts to every month. Adobe have changed their policy, and there could be a patch that we all have to install every month. It's unlikely actually to be every month, but there will be more patches. And so platforms like Shopify target Magento, saying, well, you don't want a Magento site because it costs money just to keep it standing still, just to keep it safe and secure. And that's money that most merchants have to pay their agency to deliver, right? So it's sometimes seen as a hidden cost. Now, at OnTap, we've done lots of upgrades over the years, lots and lots, thousands actually, and we believe that as an agency, we should own that part of the customer relationship. So with Evergreen, our clients don't pay upgrade fees at all, right? We upgrade them to the most recent version. Once they're on that version, they don't pay again. As long as they have a relationship with us where we're doing other development work, we cover all of the costs. And what we've found is that without the costly upgrade fees, being able to deliver patches very quickly, which as an agency, and the agencies in the room should know how to do this, with things like the continuous performance gains that Magento and Adobe are building into the product, it's in our interest for our clients to be on that most up-to-date version because they're happier, they're buying more services from us. And it also removes that risk as an agency that my client's going to phone me up one day and say, hey, Dan, it's been a great relationship over the years, but we're moving to Shopify, right? And at that point, sometimes that decision has been made and you can't convince them otherwise. With Evergreen, because they're always up to date, because they're not paying for that on an ongoing basis, it takes that conversation off of the table, right? So when Shopify say, well, you've got big upgrade fees with Magento, well, if you use on tap, and we recommend all agencies do this, don't charge your clients for upgrades. We don't, and it works. We put a guarantee behind that as well to make sure that they're always up to date quickly. And the reality is, once you've upgraded them to that most recent version, as long as you're on top of that process, those updates are quite small. It doesn't take much effort. But you do need to support that, and we provide 24/7 support for our clients. Now, on our website, and there's a QR code that takes you to that website, we've actually got this calculator. So as a merchant, you can actually estimate how much your upgrades have cost you over the past 12 months, 24 months. You slide the sliders along, you tell it how much your agency charges you per hour, and it will tell you what your upgrade cost typically is. And sometimes it's quite surprising for merchants. They come to us and say, I didn't really realize that I've spent $10,000 over the past year on my upgrades. Now with Evergreen, we will upgrade them to the next version, and then they save all of that money. And for merchants, that gets back to the original principle of Magento, in that they can then spend that money on growth, not on keeping the platform standing still. And that is so important for our ecosystem that we shift away from the kind of the technical aspects of owning and delivering and supporting a Magento site, and instead we shift towards what merchants actually want their agencies to talk to them about, which is, how do I make more money with my website? What features can I add where if I spend $1, I'm getting back $2? It's that growth conversation. And that's a difficult conversation if you're also talking to them about having to pay for upgrades, right? So that money saved, we're finding our clients are still spending that money with us, but now they're spending it on the growth elements of their website, which makes them much happier. And happy clients are long-term clients. So it's on our website. There's a QR code there. You can go and play with that yourself and figure out how much you could actually potentially save. Oop, wrong way. Okay, so just drawing this to a close now, how do you actually move to Magento? And this is just based on experience. Okay, I've been doing this for a long time. I've got the grey hair to prove it. I've grown up with Magento. I've raised a family, an entire family, through the age of Magento. And in that time, I've done a lot of work with a lot of merchants in a lot of different markets. And throughout all of those projects, there's some common things that I would advise every merchant to think about. The first, I think, is the most important, and that's to find an agency that consults with you and not sells to you. And I would urge all agencies to also take that message on board, right? I have a mantra in our business that when I speak to a merchant, or when we speak to a merchant for the very first time on a call, that they leave that call having learnt something about their website or about their business, right? It's not just us saying, we'll sell you some services, right? They've learnt something, and that builds value right from the beginning. Oh, wrong way again. Now, we have lots of merchants saying, well, here's my wish list of what I want, right? And the reality is that describes version 2 of their website, not version 1. So focus on the functionality that you actually need, not what you want. Because you can always iterate and you can improve over time, because a website's never finished, right? So bring back the requirements, and that's really important for both sides of the equation, right? From the merchant to the agency, because as an agency, we might say, yeah, well, we'd love a huge project from you, But huge projects take longer, they're more risky, they're dangerous. So by having a smaller scope, we deliver something that the client knows they need, we can deliver that value quickly and with less risk. And yeah, do yourself a favor, get Hyvä theme, because it's open source. You really have to get on board with that. And then, having done yourself a favor, treat yourself, because it does cost a bit of money. And that's to use Hyvä Commerce, because it improves everybody's quality of life. And then make sure you are actually measuring the activity and the outcomes from the website, always. And continuously improve based on those metrics. Don't just build it, give it to the client, and they move away. Go back to them, tell them how they can improve it, but make sure you're using data as a basis for all of those conversations. And then as a merchant, I'd say use a platform like Magento with all of that flexibility to outmaneuver your competitors with innovation. Because if you're working with a great agency, they will enable you to do that. And that outmaneuvering means you can stay ahead of your competitors, and that's what your merchant clients, that's what all merchants want. And then moving to Magento, moving to a new agency, always get references, right? Talk to that agency's clients, right? Find out the good things, the bad things, because you need to go in with your eyes wide open. And so that's my talk today. Thank you very much.